Hello and happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our 17th episode of Dine Around Downtown Cooking at Home Edition. If you are new to the program and have not seen any of our previous episodes, but would like to, you can check them out on our website at downtowny.com/dinearound. My name is Rondi Jean, and I am the events manager for the Alliance for Downtown New York. Now, we are the business improvement district for Lower Manhattan, and what we do is we strive to help make downtown a cleaner, safer, and more vibrant place to work, live, and visit. One of the ways we do this is by providing support to local businesses. We began Dine Around Downtown Cooking at Home Edition in June of 2020 during the height of the pandemic, and it has been part of our continuing efforts to provide support to local restaurants and food security charities that have been impacted by COVID-19. Now today, our featured restaurant has chosen City Harvest as the food security charity that they are helping support today. So I'm gonna go ahead and share that link with you in the chat box. If you can, check out their website at cityharvest.org and donate what you can. All right, so just a couple of housekeeping items before we officially begin. We wanted to let you know that we are recording this cooking demo, and the link will be sent out tomorrow to everyone via email to everyone who signed up for the episode. And during this demo, if you have any questions for our guest or our host, please submit them by using the Q&A feature. Now, for those of you who are on a desktop or laptop, this is usually located at the bottom of the screen. But if you are using a mobile device, such as a phone, iPad, or tablet, you can tap your screen once, and depending on the device, it will either appear on the top right corner or at the bottom of the screen. And then for the chat box, we will reserve that for us to share helpful links and other detailed information with you throughout the program. And speaking of helpful links, I'm going to share with you right now this helpful link. And this is our Post Your Plate contest. Now, if you are following along and cooking at home, either today or perhaps over the weekend, you can enter to win a 30-minute private virtual cooking class with tonight's guest chef by simply posting your plate or on Instagram using hashtag #DineAroundAtHome and tagging @DowntownNYC. Check out the link that I shared in the chat box for details, and don't forget to tag the restaurant, the chef, and our host too, as they would all love to see your masterpieces. Great, and I think that is everything on my list. So without further ado, it's always my pleasure to introduce and welcome your host, James Beard Award-winning chef and New York Times bestselling author, Rocco DiSpirito.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
welcome to Dine Around Downtown at Home Edition. Thanks for joining us for our 17th episode. Can you imagine? It's been 17 episodes that you've come back over and over again to join me and some of our favorite chefs in the downtown community. Thank you, Ron, for your wonderful introduction. I'm really excited about our guest today. We don't do pastry enough. I'm just going to say it out loud. And today we're going to do 3 pastries with one of the great chefs, one of the great pastry chefs of downtown. She's worked for Tom Colicchio for a number of years, I think since 2013, if I'm reading my notes correctly, has been the executive pastry chef of Temple Bar and the Bar Beekman for as long as it's been around, and also a graduate of the CIA, my alma mater. We'll talk about that a little bit. I don't talk about it enough. It's quite an interesting place. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Abby, executive pastry chef, Abby Swain. Welcome, Abby. How are you?
Hi, Rocco. Thanks for that
Hi,
introduction.
what's going on? You're welcome. Go for it. Looks delicious. You have three beautiful dishes in front of you.
Yeah, I've got 3 treats right here for you. Today we're gonna be making a feuille de brique, which is a dessert that you can get at the bar room at Temple Court.
Okay, I know we have to stop. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you. When you say feuille de brique, we have to tell everybody what that is, because there's going to be a million questions. Everyone's going to freak out. What's feuille de brique? Show them what it is. It's super easy to work with and really delicious.
It is one of my favorite things to play around with. It's so versatile. It looks almost like a really thin crepe, and it is something that you can make yourself at home. There's plenty of recipes that
We
you
don't
can find on the
recommend it,
internet, but
right?
you
We don't
can't get a
recommend
better
it.
quality product than store bought because the beauty of it is that it's super thin like paper, and when you bake it in the oven or deep fry it, it gets like super crispy very quickly. So there's lots of fun stuff that you can do with it, and it's not sweet. It doesn't have any sugar in it, so you can use it for both savory and sweet applications.
And it's made from wheat flour, guys, and it does have gluten. It's a traditional pastry, and feuille means leaf or leaf.
Yeah,
It's a leaf of, I don't know what brick means. I've never known what brick means, but I've used this product my whole career. And Abby has a great pro tip about where to get it.
Oh yeah, you can find it at SOS Chefs in Manhattan, or you can buy it online. There's I believe a website that has been linked to your recipe notes if you're not local. But SOS Chefs, if you're not familiar with it, is on Avenue B and between 6th and 7th Street. And it is a great resource for people looking for quality ingredients, chefs and home cooks alike.
Absolutely, it's a hidden gem for the public. Definitely something chefs have been taking advantage of for easily 20 years or 20 years plus. All right, chef, what's next? So the first dessert was the feuille de brick.
Yep. And then we have a pumpkin bread. This is one of my favorite things to make in the season. I think the versatility of making a quick bread is really great. You can bake it as a muffin, you can bake it in a loaf, you can bake it in a cake. And it really showcases those fall spices that, and I use honey nut squash. I know we call it pumpkin bread, but I find that the honey nut squash that you can get here locally is it's just like a mini butternut squash. So you could use butternut squash instead if you can't find the honey nut. But we'll get into how to process that after we introduce everything. Here I have it just toasted in a little bit of clarified butter with some pepitas that I candied with some sugar and salt, and then some whipped cream.
Looks wonderful.
You can usually find that as a muffin for breakfast at the bar room. And then I thought it would be fun to temper some chocolate. I think it's one of those things that is super intimidating, but once you kind of get the basis, it seems more approachable even for those at home. And here I have just a few random different toppings. I think a lot of holiday cookies are usually what gets shared. So having something that's a little bit more unique and even gluten-free is a nice treat for the holidays. Here I have candied orange with Togarashi. That's my personal favorite with this milk chocolate. But you can also do candied ginger, candied coconut, cranberries. You also have like a graham crumb topping, so you get a little s'mores action in there.
Looks great. Amazing. How do we get started?
All right. Well, first, I want to get my chocolate melted. So we're going to kind of bounce around between the recipes. There are a few things that we want to get started with, and then we'll go back and follow up to finish out each dish.
Chef, I'm so proud of you for doing it this way. Every other chef, we've asked them to have swap outs, and so we basically asked them to, retool the way they cook so that it works for a demonstration. You're going to actually cook the way chefs cook, which is to start multiple projects at once and bounce around from one to the other. So for those of you who are ready to hit the next level of cooking at home, this is how we actually do it. It's not, swap outs don't magically appear from underneath our counters when we're cooking in restaurants. So can't wait to see how you manage all this, chef.
So we're going to temper milk chocolate today. There are different temperatures that you have to hit when you are tempering chocolate. For milk chocolate, you want to heat it to 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you want to chill it to 81 degrees Fahrenheit. What you're doing is you're bringing the chocolate out of temper. And when you have chocolate in temper, you have like a really nice snap, and it is consistent in appearance, right? You don't have like those little white bubbles. And that's called bloom. So that's how you'll know when your chocolate is out of temper. So what we're doing is we're melting it to bring it out of temper. And then we want to drop the temperature down to seed that the cocoa butter to be able to be hard and snap. That's traditional with chocolate. And then we'll bring it up to a working temperature, which is 84 degrees. And that's specifically for milk chocolate. If you're working with a darker chocolate, you're going to want to go a little bit higher. I brought my Valrhona here with you. So Valrhona is pretty great. What they do is they just have it right on the side of the bag. So you can Google whatever percentage of chocolate that you're using. They'll tell you what to do. For example, if you're going to do a dark chocolate, you would heat it to 31 degrees, drop it to 82, and then rewarm it to 88. And then white chocolate would be even lower. So I have a little pot of water. You don't want chocolate to touch the direct heat. So you would put a little pot with a little bit of water, and then I just put my bowl on top. And I have my thermometer in here, and it's got an alarm set, which is a super handy little trick to just tell me when it's at 113. And what I'll do is I'll take that off the heat and I'll put it onto a bowl with a little bit of ice just to shock it down. But I will show you that process when we get to that point.
Can we talk about that for a second? That
Sure.
piece of cooking equipment is probably the most innovative and useful and versatile piece of cooking equipment that's been invented in the last 10 years. My favorite brand is the Breville one, or Polysci. It's called a Control Freak, and it's got a probe that attaches to the motor that decides the temperature, and it'll stop cooking. It'll stop warming when it hits your desired temperature. So it really makes working with chocolate super easy. And by the way, these temperatures that the chef just shared with you, these used to be, secrets that people would keep to themselves for their entire careers. You had to go, work for free with the great, French pastry chefs for 10 years before they would tell you, heat it to 113, cool it to 81 or 89. And they would always do this funny thing where they would touch it to their chin to determine temperature. And, it's pretty imprecise. It obviously always worked for them. I don't see any chocolate stains on your chin, chef. So I imagine you're using technology now.
Well, that is also how I learned. You take the spatula and you hit it right to your bottom of your lip, because you'll be able to tell what the temperature is. You're right. I mean, I was even thinking about it the other day when I received a block of chocolate. Man, I haven't seen a block of chocolate in probably a decade. Now we get these tiny little pistoles that have been engineered to melt perfectly. But we used to get these big bricks of chocolate, and you would have to chop it up into little pieces before you could melt it. So with the resource of like Google,
break it apart. Remember that? The ice pick with the little 6-prong. So for the people listening at home, chef, they're going to want to do this in a microwave. I'm sorry, I'm going to speak for the average man out there. They're going to want to do it in the microwave. What do you say about that? What's your opinion?
Use a
other than don't do it. I know.
Don't do it. No, I mean, go right ahead. I think as long as you're trying something, and I have nothing against it, just don't put it in a metal bowl. It would be my first recommendation.
Great advice for sure.
The smell of burning chocolate is maybe the worst in the entire world. So do small increments. Do 10 seconds at a 5 seconds at a time. Start really, really small. Don't just put it in there for a minute and forget about it, because your apartment will.
So you're saying there is a chance it may work. It does work.
Yeah, all you're really doing is you need to warm it to 113 to bring it out of temper, and then you need to, flash it on ice to bring it down to 180 to 81, and then bringing it back up to working temperature.
Are you a fan of adding back some broken up chocolates to it to cool it down?
Right. So there are a couple of different techniques that you can do. Excuse me. So there's this is the one that I find the most foolproof. As long as you're staying on top of it and you're paying attention, right? Oh, we're at 113, right? So I'm gonna
see, that's super cool, guys. If you want to invest $1,000 in a piece of cooking equipment, get one of these induction burners with a probe, and I imagine they'll be in the 300 to 400 range pretty soon. But the good ones are around 1,000.
You could just get an induction burner and a private a regular thermometer.
That's true. Yeah, that's a great hack.
So I want to stir and make sure that all of it is melted in here. So what Rocco was talking about is the seeding method. So you would melt chocolate, and then you would take unmelted chocolate and you would throw it in there handfuls at a time, incorporating it until it is fully melted. And that is a way of you're not taking the chocolate out of temper and then dropping it down over an ice bath to bring that tempering back. You're adding in unmelted tempered chocolate, and that just kind of like it's contagious. It just seeds the chocolate in that way. There's also tabling method where you would melt your chocolate completely, and then you would put it onto like a marble slab, and you would smear it out, roll it up, smear it out, roll it out. So those are more when you're touching the spatula to your lip to check the temperature. I think it's more about the process and less about the science in that instance. I find this the most the least stressful for me is this method.
The table method is the one you see in all the films, though. That's the sexy one. I'm still not sure how that works. You put it on a cold piece of marble. You use a spatula. You spread it back and forth, and you allow the air to cool it, I guess.
The marble is cool
Marble,
to the touch. So for me, what I do is I just have a little bit of ice, and I'll put the bowl right on here only for a second, because the chocolate will harden to the bottom of the bowl, and if it gets too thick when you're reincorporating it, you'll have chunks, and you don't want that. But a marble is the cooling method for that technique.
And I hate to dwell on this, but this is probably what gets most people stumble on when they're cooking at home. So what do you do if you see it bloom? If some of it turns white, can you just melt it and retemper it?
Yes, you can. It will
Okay.
it will be more difficult. Like for me, if we bloom our chocolate or it doesn't come into temper, I lay it out onto a sheet tray, or put it into a pie container and let it. It won't harden exactly, but I'll use it for something else. Like I'll use it for a chocolate pudding, or I'll use it for an ice cream, or make hot chocolate. And I'll start with some fresh chocolate.
All right, so that's a really good pro tip. If your chocolate blooms and you mess up the tempering, you can't use it to make this anymore. You have to use it for something else. And what if you see little squiggly lines of fat in there, of cocoa butter in there? Is it ruined, and do you have to use it for something else, or can you salvage that?
When you're still mixing, or once it's tempered?
Yeah, when you're trying to temper and it's hardened, but you can see the squiggly lines of the cocoa butter or whatever fat is in there.
Mm-hmm. You can bring it back up to working temperature. If for milk chocolate, that would be 84, and you would stir it.
So that's salvageable.
A lot of chocolate places will have like holding boxes for their chocolate. So they'll bring it up to temperature, they'll drop it down to temperature, they'll bring it up to working temperature, and then hold it there while they use it.
Another great pro tip, getting one of those, yeah.
I don't use that much. I don't. So we don't. So like if I'm working with chocolate, I'll have it out, and I'll notice it'll start to thicken or start to cool. I'll just put it right back onto my hot water over here for a second and bring it back up to the working temperature. And that's when you could reincorporate those cocoa butter swirls. All right, so my chocolate's almost fully melted, but it's at 97, so we're gonna go a little bit higher. Okay. While that is coming up to temperature, let's get our honey nut squash that I had shown you earlier. We're going to roast this. You can also, no judgment, totally buy pumpkin puree. Sub out equal parts. It is no stress, no pressure. I just want to show you this technique if you do feel like using squash for this instead. So like I said, use squash instead of pumpkin, just because it's a little bit sweeter, it's a little bit more fibrous, and you don't have a ton of moisture like you find in pumpkin.
Yeah, so guys, if you're looking for honey nut squash at Whole Foods or in the grocery store, you may not find it. This is a special hybrid that was created by Chef Dan Barber about 5-6 years ago. It's typically available in the green markets. I know Norwich Meadows Farm has it, and Lonnie's Farm has it, and now just about everybody has it. It is superb and definitely designed for baking and turning into puree. So if you want to give up on the canned pumpkin puree, try to make it yourself. This is the squash to do it with.
So I cut the stem off because I don't want to cut through the stem. And then I cut it in half, and I scooped out all of the seeds. And now what I'll do is I like to drizzle it with a little bit of maple syrup, just to add some nice flavor and get it. I will put a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan, and then I'm going to cover it with foil. So, and then it goes into an oven. Just a splash of water. I want it to stay like nice and moist in there. I'm not trying to drown the squash. Like I said, the moisture is what's going to be an issue here. So I'm not trying to add any. I just want to have like a nice steamy environment. I cover this with foil. I bake it in the oven at 350 for 30 to 40 minutes. I'll test it after 30, and I'll poke it with a fork and see if it's tender. Put that. Then
Yeah, so okay, there you go.
and then this is what it will look like when it's fully done. I have a tammy here, and this is how I like to pass it. But you can just scoop it out with a spoon and put it in a Roboku or mash it however you like. This is just my favorite way to do it because it catches all of the skins. If you have a cooling rack, let me see, I have one. You can also press it on here too, and it will it'll catch the skins and only push the flesh through.
So the tamis that she's referring to, that sieve, guys, the tamis is the French word for it, and these are easy to find now.
So everything will go through except for the squash, or I'm sorry, skin. Yeah, these are great.
Yeah, amazing. What a great technique. This is definitely pro tip number 5 going on here. Who knew you didn't have to?
And then I don't know if bowl scrapers are common at home, but they should be. These are one of my favorite tools.
Yeah, the bowl scrapers are a must have now. They're really inexpensive, easy to find, and they're indispensable.
Yep, agreed. All right, so now that we have our squash puree, we can mix our pumpkin bread. Okay, so I have all of my dry ingredients ready to go. Another thing that I don't know if it is as common at home as I think it should be, but a microplane. I use this for lemon zest or microplaning my nutmeg. I just like to rub it on here. And I eyeball a half teaspoon because if you go and try and put this into a measuring spoon, it's a little bit difficult, but I'll just scrape this over the bowl. So I have my bread flour and my all-purpose flour in here, along with the baking powder, salt, baking soda, cinnamon, clove, and now nutmeg. If you don't have bread flour, it is totally fine to substitute out your all-purpose flour. I have bread flour, so I like to have a little bit more structure and protein in the cake, and it works better for me. But if you're not someone who frequently uses bread flour, it's not worth buying a 5-pound bag to just have in your pantry for this one thing. And it will work just fine. Here we have the oil, the sugar. I'm going to add the squash puree, and we're going to blend that to start, and then I'll finish it with our dry ingredients. You can do this with a hand blender. You could even do it by hand, but I have a nice little stand mixer that I'm going to utilize here. Once my squash is, oh wait.
What do you think is the best bet for a home cook and stand mixer? How much do they need to spend? What size?
My home KitchenAid mixer is from a thrift store.
Oh, that's a great tip, from a thrift store. That's really smart. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
So you must have got it for a good deal, $100, $200, something like that.
Something like that. Actually, it's a Nova. My mom worked there for about 15 years, so she would always keep an eye out for the good stuff.
Oh, good. Pro tip number 6: have your mom work at the thrift store.
I got all clad cover pots. I've got
Wow,
KitchenAid
that's so
mixer.
smart.
Yeah.
I would
So I
never have
would
guessed the thrift
suggest
store.
checking there first.
Yeah, I would never have guessed the thrift store would sell those things.
But a kitchen will run you a couple $100. I think like Black Friday deals, I've seen them for like $250.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a 7-quart one now that I think goes for like $600. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But a 7-quart, this is a 6-quart. A 7-quart would be pretty big for a home cook.
Agreed. I think there's a 3 or 4-quart one that's usually more than big enough in the $200 to $300 range for home cooks.
Sorry, I got distracted. I didn't put my hands in.
That's okay. This is a quick bread, you said, right? So it really doesn't matter what order you put everything in.
Right. I would
Yeah.
have put them in with the oil and the sugar and the puree.
Okay.
That's totally fine. And since this is on Zoom, you guys don't get to try it anyway.
I'm sure it'll be delicious. But we can come there and buy it or try it. It's on the menu occasionally. Is that right?
Yep. So we serve breakfast in the bar room, and I like to do a rotating muffin. Pumpkin bread is usually there. We'll do an apple cider, banana bread, blueberry muffins in the summer. Kind of change it up. So now that our batter is made, I'm going to show you how I'm going to prep my pan. I know that yours is 9 by 4 in the recipe. I use a much larger one because I make a lot more. But this is 12 by 4 by, I would say 2.5 or 3 inches, which works well for this. I will take a piece of parchment and trace the bottom of my pan with my Sharpie. And then I flip it over because I don't want that I don't want that Sharpie to be on the inside of my pumpkin bread. And I'll fold along those lines. This is my favorite way to do this for any time I'm making something in a loaf pan. I'll take my scissors or a knife, but I am cutting a line straight to that corner. Or not straight to, on an angle to that corner. And I'll use some can spray on the inside of that pan. And then I just fold this right in and it should fit perfectly. I'm using a spatula just to make sure that it's all homogeneous. I'm just folding it over a little bit. This is what your batter should look like when it has the eggs in it. You can bake this in muffin cups. You can bake it in a cake pan. I think that this would be really good with a little cream cheese frosting if you wanted to do a layer cake. But the versatility of a quick bread and the seasonality that you can use, I think is something that's really, really great about it. So I'll flatten this out. You can see all the ground clove and the spices in there. And that also goes in the oven. I will bake this a little bit lower, 325 for about 40 minutes. You can stick a toothpick in it and see that it comes out clean, or you can press the top of the cake with your finger, and once it starts to come back fully, you'll know that they're fully baked. let's get to our almond cream. So moving on to the feuille de brick, we have an almond cream that I like to pipe inside the feuille de brick and bake it with some macerated apples. So because we want to do the creaming method with our sugar and our butter, I got it started. You want it to be nice and pale when you are adding your room temperature eggs. Because my butter is softened, if you were to add cold eggs, it would make everything seize up. So you do want to make sure that everything's at room temperature. Yeah. So when recipes say to add your eggs one at a time, it's because you need to let all of that liquid get absorbed, like worked into the fat, or else it will break and separate. So what you want to do is add one. Once you don't see the egg anymore, you can scrape down and add another one. It is a really important step. It's one of those things that you just kind of want to throw them all in, but your butter will break into little pads, and the texture won't be nice. If any of you have had almond croissants, this is the same filling that's used in those. So if you wanted to take any of your extra almond cream and buy some croissants and make your own twice baked croissants, I highly recommend it. Those are one of my favorite breakfast pastries. We have those at the bar room at Temple Court as well for breakfast. You can also sub out hazelnut flour for almond flour, which is what we'll do for the pan au chocolat. So we'll make chocolate hazelnut croissants for breakfast. You have to be a little bit careful because the fat content in hazelnuts is higher than the almond flour. So you do have to I'm adding my next egg. Okay, that's good. Relax it. A little.
Hey, Chef, would you use plain pastry cream if there was a nut allergy for this?
The pastry cream would work well for this, yes. You want to have something that's a little bit thicker, just because we are piping onto a flat surface. But I think that pastry cream would be a fantastic alternative. And you can flavor it however you want. Do so now I'm adding the almond flour in.
Oh, let's see some of that. It looks delicious. I love almond croissants. My favorite. I think everybody's favorite, other than plain, is the almond croissant. Yum.
And it's one of those things that it's so good. You wish that you had more reasons to eat it. And so that's why I like using it inside the feuille de brick instead of just the almond croissant. Like also really good with in a tart shell. Like you put like some fresh pear on top and bake it. I'm like always looking for excuses to use this more. All right, so back to our foy de brick sheets. Like I said, these aren't sweet. There's no sugar in them, so I do like to brush them with butter and sprinkle a little bit of sugar, just to kind of balance out some of the sweetness that's inside. This is a really fun dessert to do. My niece and I made these together for a family party. It was a huge crowd pleaser, and it was one of those things that people of all ages can help put together. All right, so I have a little bit of melted butter on my pastry brush here, and I'm just going to do a light brushing. Sprinkle of sugar. Doesn't have to be aggressive. Second layer, because you really want to have it nice and crispy. There will be some moisture with the apples and the almond cream, so I like to double that up. We'll do another sprinkling of sugar. Get this stuff out of our way. Here I macerated some apples. What I like to do is peel and dice, and then I toss them in sugar and apple pectin. For this application, we're doing a little bit of cardamom, and let those sit out for a couple of hours to get some of that sugar to kind of seep out, or we can make it the day before and put it in the refrigerator, and it will have the same effect. So I'm going to do a little glob of almond cream right here in the center, and you can be pretty generous with it. So that's the best part. Apples right on top. And then I'm gonna fold it up like a little flower. I'm gonna have my butcher's twine. You can also use like strips of parchment paper, anything that's gonna hold this little bundle together is fine. And so I'm rolling it up. I grab one side and then the other side. And kind of have like 4 corners. You see that? And then I'll pinch in. But really, like no rules here. You just want it to hold all the good stuff.
That's very cool. So it's like a dumpling almost.
Mm-hmm.
It looks super easy what you just did, but the result is magnificent. It looks like you spent hours making a flour.
And then you just pull these 2 pieces apart to really kind of give it a little bit more definition.
That's so cool.
And then because there's butter on it, if you pop this in the refrigerator for a little bit, it will hold its shape, and you can take that butcher's twine off before you put it in the oven. It's a lot easier to get off before it's baked. So we would pop that in the refrigerator. This is one of those things you can make it, like a day ahead, put it in the fridge, or make it in the morning, and then right before you're getting ready for dinner, you pop it in the oven, so it's like baking while you're eating, and then it's nice and hot and fresh for you to have for dessert. That gets baked at 325 for 22 minutes. You want it to be golden. Let me show you. You want it to be completely golden all the way over, all the way around.
So beautiful. Look at that. Wow. Everybody's stunned. I'm sure everyone who's watching is stunned.
I like to serve this warm and with a little bit of ice cream. Okay, so back to our chocolate. We're sitting at 113. Get my ice bath ready.
Definitely going to want to see into this bowl. This is pastry magic at its finest.
Clear out some space here so I can bring all my good stuff over. Once chocolate is tempered, you have to work pretty quickly. So I'm going to have all my stuff set up here for myself. And I also want to have a dry towel because water is the death of chocolate. So I want to make sure that before I pick my bowl up to pour it into my piping bag, that I've really dried the bottom of the bowl. All right, so we are only putting it on for a second. I'm not going to hold it there because I don't know if you can see, but it already solidified on the bottom of that bowl.
Wow.
And I don't want to have
That
a real
fast.
thick.
Okay.
So you got to move pretty quickly and make sure that you're scraping all the way around. So we went to 96. I mean, it's a real quick drop. This doesn't take very much time at all.
So it dropped almost 20 degrees in 1 second.
Yep, now we're sitting at 91. That was after
Wow.
two dips.
Yeah.
Making sure that I'm really scraping the full bottom of the bowl.
And what are you looking for in the difference, the visual, the shimmer versus the opaqueness and all that?
You'll see it start to become more viscous.
Yeah.
And I'm also looking for, I guess I don't, it's more about like making sure it's the same, it's homogeneous. So like if I start to see
Right.
like color discoloration or like those streaks that you were talking about earlier. We're at 86 now.
And we're looking for 81.
And we're
here,
going
right?
to 81.
81.
Correct.
And Chef, this is obvious to you, but not to a lot of the viewers. Why do you need to temper chocolate?
And it's what gives it that hard snap.
Okay.
And it's what makes it not melt when you hold on to it.
Ah, okay.
So you'll have the different, when you see a chocolate bar that's been left out in the sun, it is mush, and that's the temper that does that. Gives it the nice snap, the texture that we're looking for, the consistency and tooth feel, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I can see it getting thick now. It's really
Mm-hmm.
quite different than it was before.
All right, we're at 81. So I'm going to put it back over my heat because I want it to be at the working temperature, right? Like you had just mentioned, it's a little bit thicker. This would be hard for me to use. If you were trying to dip anything in here, it would be too thick. So we're going to bring it back up to working temperature, which is 84 for milk chocolate. And it would be, and it's just as quick on off with you as I was with the ice. You don't want to leave it on there for very long because it's only 3 degrees. It's not a significant temperature difference. And what I like about these mendiants that we're doing is that you can really personalize them in any way that you want, right? So I like to do milk chocolate with candied orange and Togarashi, but you could do dark chocolate with peppermint smashed candies, or I don't know, like walnuts, or we also have some coconut and candied cranberries. And so you have a way to personalize it, which I think is nice. All right, 83, 84. So I don't need my thermometer anymore. I did what we were supposed to do. Dry the bottom of my bowl because I don't want any of that water to fall in.
So if some of the water did fall in, tell us what would happen.
Yeah, the chocolate would separate. Because it's an emulsion. It's a fat and water emulsion. So if you added any water to it, it would break. The death of chocolate. All right, so I like to work in a piping bag. You can work in a Ziploc bag. You could spoon it over if you wanted to. I think pouring might be a little dangerous, but you can take the risk. All right. So what we'll do here is just drop it. Cut a small piece off. And then we're just piping little coins. Here at Temple Court, we cheat a little bit. I have this really nice flexi mold that I like to use for these little squares. So it's a little bit more consistent in size. You can make these any size that you want, really. Or take the same thing and make it into like a little candy bar with the toppings on it. So this is the candied orange. I just have it cut into little squares. And then this is Togarashi. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I'm not sure if it's
Yeah, tell us what it
that
is.
people are familiar with. It's a spice blend that it has like a red chili, black and white sesame seeds, nori, ground ginger, grated orange zest. I think I'm missing something. Japanese pepper. So it's spicy, but you really get some of that orange notes, which I thought was kind of what made it more approachable for me to kind of cross over and use into sweets. I'm always looking to savory for these like more fun, interesting ingredients, just so that you know, just to get excited about stuff. But I think that Togarashi is one of those that you would kind of be surprised. I mean, there's seaweed in it, right? You wouldn't expect that, but because there's the ground ginger and there's the candied orange zest, it does make it a little bit more approachable for the pastry side. And like I said, you could do anything that you wanted here. You could even just dip pretzels in it. But I cheat and use this little flexi mold. So I'll just pop these out. And then we have these like nice little squares. I did some sprinkles. I did some candied dried cranberry and coconut. Here's the Togarashi and candied orange. Some graham cracker. And I did some candied ginger too. All right, let's plate up some stuff and see if anybody has any questions about anything.
There's a bunch of questions already queued up. As soon as you're ready, we'll start to throw them at you.
Okay. So here's the foie de brick. I like to dust it with a little bit of 10x sugar. For aesthetics, there's some, I did some feuilletine to hold ice cream. I just have a little bit of vanilla here. You can put your favorite ice cream here. In the bar room, we're using a cardamom caramel ice cream, but for this application, I just have vanilla. And then we have the pumpkin bread. We'll just take this guy out. Unwrap it. You see that? I like to get a nice big chunk.
And which of these desserts is the one that's on the regular menu?
The foie de brick with the almond and the.
Oh, okay, the foie de brick. Got it. Cool. So that's on the menu. You can get that every day. The other two are available occasionally, or if you stay in the hotel, I imagine some of those mendiants will find their way to your pillow.
Correct, exactly.
Great reason to do a staycation at the Beekman. The pumpkin bread, you should just make it home. It looks so easy. You made it look so easy. And how do you serve the pumpkin bread? Just like that, or with
I like to toast it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's look at them again. Sure.
Pumpkin bread toasted. I'll use a little clarified butter, but can spray or a little oil will do just fine. And then I have some raw pumpkin seeds that I like to toss with a little bit of sugar, simple syrup and salt, and I'll toast those until they're nice and crunchy. And then that's just some plain whipped cream on the side. So this served warm, I think, as a fancy breakfast or a simple dessert is a great way to go.
I imagine it'd be a great French toast as well, right?
Mm,
do all
that's
kinds
a
of
great
things with
idea.
it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One of our frequent guests, Ava Heineman, is saying she's salivating all over these recipes. You can salivate right on top of the dish if you go to the Beekman, Ava. And someone wants to know about the silicone mat that you use to make the mendiants.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tell us all about that. That's that still hasn't really
These
penetrated
flexi
the
molds.
use yet.
These I get at JB Prince, which is in Gramercy, off Park Avenue, and I want to say 23rd or 26th Street, maybe 26th
JB Prince,
Street.
right? Yeah, we'll put
Yeah.
that link in the chat. It's absolute must go for anyone who's interested in the Pro Tools.
Yeah. My bowl scrapers I get from them, spatulas, all that stuff. But they have a really great selection of, I don't know if you can see here on the bottom, of flexi molds, and they're really nice and malleable. They're easy to use. Like here at the hotel, like I could use these for like brownie bites or cheesecake bites or something that's going to be bite size. They have so many different shapes. I mean, there's like lemons and oranges and trains, but we just use like rectangles mostly, squares,
And those
some
are
domes.
Heat and freezer resistant, right?
Correct. You can bake in
them.
these.
Mm-hmm.
They're great. They are a little bit more expensive depending on the size and the shape that you get. They'll probably run you about $100, $125 upwards.
But you could also just pipe it out onto a sheet pan with some parchment paper, right? If you wanted to. And
correct.
you don't have to buy this expensive equipment. But if you really want to, and you haven't filled out your Christmas gift list yet, it might be something nice to add. What about the silicone mat that you piped out the mendiants on originally?
Yeah. The Silpat. So it is. It's a nice way to have reusable parchment. So it is threaded and coated in silicone, so you can bake on that as well. But cool. Parchment is totally fine. Wax paper would probably be easier for those at home to pop off.
So Ava Heineman also wants to know if you can give her or direct her to a place where she can find apple pectin. Did you mention apple pectin earlier, or just pectin powder?
I did. So when people are taking fruit and thickening it for pies and such, they'll traditionally toss in cornstarch or AP flour, which is totally fine. But I find them cloudy, and the apple pectin, it makes it almost like jelly and jam. So when you bake the fruit inside, it has like almost like a gelled consistency. Apple pectin is a powder that they make derived from apples. It's the natural thickener. It's found in fruit. Like blueberries are very high in pectin. That's why you'll see like if you're cooking them, they'll seize up pretty quickly. I forgive me, I did not think about apple pectin as far as like something that you would have to source. I imagine it would be on the internet. I bet SOS Chefs has it. If you have like, right? Oh yeah,
regular pectin powder.
Pectin. You'll find it in like the canning sections. I would assume of like grocery stores.
Yeah. I find it in the aisle that sells Jello and icing sugar and baking powder. That the sugar aisle usually has pectin powders. Now you have to cook pectin for it to gel, right? That's important for people to know. It's not like xanthan gum or some of the other instant gums. You have to cook it to. I think you have to boil it. If I remember correctly.
It does have to come to a boil. Yes, you are correct.
Cool.
I like to use it in like fruit crisps. And as soon as you see that fruit bubbling, you know that the pectin is going to do its job. And then anything that boils over is almost like a fruit roll-up. It's delicious.
And then selfish question, fruit roll-ups. I've been into them recently, making a lot of fruit roll-ups. Adding some pectin definitely helps make it pliable, right? Now you're just consulting for me. You're just giving me free information. I appreciate that. Anonymous wants to know if you can substitute pumpkin with banana. I imagine you could, but you'd probably have to make some adjustments, right?
If Anonymous wants to send me an email, I can send my banana bread recipe. They
oh,
are.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Take her up on that. I'm going to send you an email.
I have a different recipe. I've never tried to sub out banana, but I do have my grandmother's recipe as my favorite, so I'll share that with you.
Very cool. That would be awesome. If we could just post that and you're generous enough to just give it away like that, we'd love to have it. Lisa A wants to know if you prefer baking or using dark or milk chocolate.
If I'm eating chocolate, I prefer milk chocolate. If I am cooking with chocolate or baking with chocolate, I think that dark chocolate gives you a wider base of flavor profiles that you can use. Like you can be a little bit more creative. Like when I think about milk chocolate, I think about like bananas. And if I want to do something that's like more like stone, like dried like red berries, or I don't know. I think with flavor profiles, you have a lot more variety available to you with dark chocolate. But if I'm just going to snack on some chocolate, I want it to be milk.
I hear you. I like all kinds of chocolate. Every kind of chocolate is my favorite. Let's see. New York Institute of Fine Art wants to know what happened to the little round mendiants that you made. Where are they? Where are you hiding them? We want to see them. Will they harden at room temperature? Tempered chocolate is supposed to do that, right?
Yes,
That's
they are.
point.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
If
Getting a lot of wows and
yours,
yums and oohs and ahs also in the questions that department. So everyone's loving it.
If like mine, if I were to pop these in the freezer for a minute, no, not very long, they would harden. I just got distracted with the. I didn't expect to get called out. I had my I had my switch out ready. But yeah, you can if they don't harden, you can pop them in the freezer just for a minute. You don't want them to stay in there. You don't want any moisture to start to form, because if you pull it out and it's gotten too cold, you will get condensation on the chocolate, and that is a problem, like I said. So it just flash it in there like 30 seconds.
There you go, guys. And I think you answered this, but last question before we sign off. Could you use arrowroot instead of pectin? You covered it, but briefly, if you could, for Eilish O'Callahan.
Yes, I'm not super familiar with arrowroot, so you would have to look to see, the quantities. When I'm using pectin, we macerate almost all fruit for baking, and what I'll do is 10% sugar, 1% pectin as like a regular guide. If for your fruit roll-ups, you would want to do closer to like 2. I think once you go over 2.5% pectin, it starts to get a little too bouncy ball. But I'm sure that there is some resources for arrowroot out there, but you can absolutely sub it out. I mean, even if you just wanted to sprinkle in some cornstarch or AP flour, that would work just as well.
All right, Chef Abby Swain, thank you so much. I'll give you a chance to say goodbye to everybody. And obviously you can come visit Abby at the Beekman, the bar at the Beekman and Temple Court, where Abby presides as executive pastry chef and has been there since the opening. Is that correct, Chef?
Yep, just over 5 years ago, we opened up the hotel. Thank you for having me. This is a real treat to be able to share this with you. Donate to City Harvest, the largest food bank in New York City. Let me know if you make anything. I'd like to see your pictures, tag me. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
For sure. We're going to absolutely encourage everyone to make your recipes, post their plate. And, we do that with every episode, and people love to post the things that they cook. And again, the winner will get a personal cooking class with Chef Abby of the Barroom at the Beekman. And as you can see, you will learn a lot. We learned 3 new dishes and how to temper chocolate in less than an hour today. So I can only imagine what she could do with another 30 minutes. So please don't forget to post your plate, tag Dine Around at Home, tag Downtown NYC, please tag Chef Abby, please tag the Barroom at the Beekman, and tag me as well. I'd like to see what's going on. And don't forget to go visit her at the Barroom at the Beekman, downtown New York City. And stay tuned. We have a special winter episode and more coming soon. I look forward to hosting more great chefs from the downtown area and our Downtown Alliance chefs. This has been fun as always. And thank you, Donna and Lisa and Ava and all of you for your questions and your enthusiasm. We really appreciate it. In the meanwhile, happy holidays. Spend some time with the people you love. Please cook for them. It's the best way to tell them you love them. And I really enjoyed cooking with you and hosting for you this year. Have a great holiday and New Year, everybody. Talk soon.